This is SOSF. Alright, let's get weird. If you're easily offended or your beliefs are set in stone, this might not be the one for you. So, I'm reading this wild document, right? It's not your typical stuff. It's a deep dive, a socioeconomic analysis. I know. Sounds like some boring university paper. But hang with me. The question it asks is absolutely mind-bending. Forget aliens landing on the White House lawn. Forget finding out we're in a simulation. This is bigger. The question is this: what if, tomorrow, a team of scientists, I'm talking Nobel Prize-winning, unimpeachable, serious as a heart attack scientists, held a press conference and proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that there is an afterlife? I don't mean they found a blurry photo or some weird audio recording. I mean they have hard, repeatable, scientific proof. Like gravity. Like the laws of thermodynamics. It's a fact. Consciousness, your Eunice, continues after your body gives out. Death isn't the end. It's just a doorway. What the hell happens to the world the next day? What happens to you? That's what we're going to unpack. Because this paper I was reading, man, it lays out that this discovery wouldn't bring world peace and everyone holding hands singing Kumbaya. It would unleash a Category 5 hurricane of chaos that would reshape every single thing we thought we knew about being human. First, you gotta understand how they even got this proof. The scientists in this scenario didn't just talk to a medium. They found a way to measure consciousness as a form of, like, quantum information. Think about that. Your thoughts, your memories, your personality, it's all data. And according to this new physics, that data can't be destroyed. When your brain, the biological hardware, shuts down for good, that quantum information, that's you, just detaches. It continues to exist on another plane, in another dimension, whatever you want to call it. It's nuts. For years, people have talked about near-death experiences, seeing a light, floating over their bodies. Mainstream science always just brushed it off, you know? Oh, your brain's just freaking out, starved of oxygen. But in this new world, all those stories suddenly become data points. They become the first eyewitness accounts from a new frontier. But here's the kicker, and this is where it gets really crazy. The impact of this discovery depends entirely on what the afterlife is actually like. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation. The report breaks it down into 3 possible scenarios, and each one would send humanity down a completely different, and totally wild, path. Let's start with scenario A. They call it the benign continuation. This is basically the afterlife that a lot of people secretly hope for. You die, and your consciousness just keeps going. You're still you. You have your memories. There's no judgment, no fiery pits, no pearly gates with a bouncer checking a list. It's just a peaceful, timeless, chill zone. Universal healthcare for the soul, you know? Everybody gets in. It doesn't matter if you were a saint or a serial killer. You just transition. Sounds pretty good, right? No more fear of oblivion. The single biggest source of anxiety that has haunted every human being since we first crawled out of the caves is just gone. But hold on. What does that actually do to people? Think about what drives you. Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you work hard, build a family, try to leave a legacy? Psychologists have this thing called terror management theory. The basic idea is that the deep, primal fear of death, of just ceasing to exist, is what secretly motivates almost everything we do. We build skyscrapers, write symphonies, and slap our names on buildings because we're terrified of being forgotten. We want to achieve a kind of symbolic immortality. But if you know, for a fact, that you're going to continue on in a perfectly nice place forever, does any of that matter anymore? The urgency just evaporates. Why bust your ass for 40 years in a job you hate to save for a retirement you might not even reach, when you could just check out and head to the cosmic lounge? Why have kids? The biological imperative to pass on your genes and continue your family line suddenly seems kind of quaint. It's like, I'll catch up with them later. The report predicts a catastrophic drop in birth rates. People would just stop having families. Society would get older and older until it just fizzled out. And what about risk? If the worst thing that can happen to you is that you get a one-way ticket to a peaceful eternity, why wouldn't you jump out of a plane without a parachute? Why wouldn't you try to surf a tsunami? Violence could become casual. Murder? Well, you're not really ending someone's life, are you? You're just forcibly relocating them. A lawyer could argue in court that it's more like kidnapping than homicide. The whole legal system would have to be thrown out. Life could become this low-stakes video game. And when you have a game with no consequences, it gets boring pretty fast. You might see a huge wave of people just opting out. Not because they're in pain or despair, but just because they're done with this level and ready for the next one. Suicide would be completely destigmatized. It'd be called early transition. Hospitals might even offer it as a service. Can you imagine that? Welcome to the transition center. Would you like a warm blanket and some soothing music before you go? It's a chilling thought. We could become a society of blissful, ambitionless lotus eaters, just waiting for our turn to leave. A utopia of apathy. That's the dark side of a guaranteed paradise. Okay, so that's the nice afterlife. Now let's put on our helmets, because scenario B is where things get really intense. This one is called the karmic reckoning. In this version, the afterlife isn't a free pass. It's a cosmic accounting system. Every single thing you do in your life, every good deed, every lie, every time you cut someone off in traffic, is being recorded. When you die, your life is reviewed, and your destination is determined by your final score. It's a direct, scientific validation of karma, or heaven and hell, or whatever system of moral consequence you want to name. The universe, it turns out, keeps receipts. The terror of oblivion is gone, but it's replaced by something infinitely worse, the terror of judgment. This isn't just a priest telling you to be good. This is a physicist telling you that the universe itself is a moral machine, and it has laws of consequence just as real as the law of gravity. What does that do to the human psyche? It would be like living your entire life with a 24/7, high-definition camera broadcasting your every move to a panel of invisible, all-powerful judges. The pressure would be unbearable. It would trigger a global pandemic of what psychologists call scrupulosity. That's a real form of OCD where people are obsessed with the fear of committing a sin. They're constantly seeking reassurance, performing rituals, paralyzed by guilt. Now imagine that's not a disorder. Imagine that's just the rational response to reality. People would become pathologically risk-averse, but only for moral risks. You'd have people afraid to leave the house in case they accidentally stepped on an ant and tanked their karmic score. Every decision would be agonizing. Should I take this job? What if the company's supply chain isn't ethically perfect? Should I eat this sandwich? Was the lettuce harvested by happy workers? Life would grind to a halt under the weight of perpetual moral calculation. And the flip side is just as scary. If you could perform certain acts that were guaranteed to give you a massive karmic reward, wouldn't you do them? This could lead to an explosion of martyrdom. People would willingly sacrifice themselves for a cause if they knew it was a golden ticket to the VIP section of the afterlife. Holy wars fought with the certainty of scientific backing. That's a terrifying thought. Society would completely reorganize itself around this one principle, gaming the system. New religions would pop up, but they'd be scientific spiritualities. They'd be run by post-mortem physicists who claim to have the inside track on which actions give you the most points. They'd sell karmic insurance. You'd pay a monthly premium, and they would perform good deeds on your behalf, donating to charity, planting trees, to offset your own screw-ups. It sounds insane, but people would be desperate. The government would get in on it too. You'd see the rise of theocratic states, but based on science, not ancient texts. Their laws would be designed to maximize the collective karmic score of the nation. Your personal freedom would be gone, all in the name of ensuring a positive eternal outcome for everyone. They'd control what you read, what you watch, who you talk to, all for your own good, of course. And death. Man, funerals would be something else. They wouldn't be about celebrating a life. They'd be a public karmic audit. Your friends and family would be called up to testify about your good and bad deeds, trying to spin your life story to the cosmic judges. Can you imagine the family drama? Well, he was a good father, but I remember that one time in 1998 when he didn't tip the waitress. It would be brutal. This world wouldn't be apathetic. It would be the complete opposite. It would be a planet of 8 billion people in a constant, frantic state of high anxiety, desperately trying to cram for an exam that lasts a lifetime and determines all of eternity. It's a different kind of hell, but it might be even worse than the first scenario. Alright, take a deep breath. We've had the chill afterlife and the stressful afterlife. Now for the third one, the real head-scratcher. Scenario C. The ethereal observer. This one is the weirdest. In this scenario, science proves that consciousness survives death, but it's not you anymore. Your personal identity, your memories, your emotions, the sense of I that you feel right now, that all dissolves. Your consciousness just merges back into some kind of universal, cosmic ocean of awareness. You become an observer, a non-interactive part of the fabric of reality, but the individual person you were is gone forever. It's like your consciousness is a drop of water, and death is when it falls back into the ocean. The water is still there, but the drop is gone. This one is a real mind-bender. It validates that something continues, but it also confirms that your personal existence is finite. It combines the scientific fact of continuation with the personal experience of annihilation. What does that do to a person's head? It's the terror of meaninglessness. If the you that loves your family, works on your goals, and experiences the world doesn't get to continue, then what's the point of any of it? All your struggles, your triumphs, your love stories, they're just a temporary flash of light that has no connection to the eternity that follows. It would be like building a beautiful, intricate sandcastle, knowing the tide is coming in to wash it all away, and there's not even anyone to remember it was there. This could lead to a profound, global wave of nihilism and existential despair. People would feel like their lives are a cosmic joke. It could make Scenario A's apathy look like a party. Why strive for anything? Why build a better world for future generations if all personal experience is just a temporary illusion? This scenario messes with you on a deep philosophical level. It makes you question the very nature of self. And in a world like that, where do you find meaning? Maybe people would become extreme hedonists, trying to cram as much physical sensation as possible into their one-shot at individual experience. Or maybe they'd turn to deep meditation, trying to get a glimpse of that universal consciousness they're destined to rejoin. Funerals in this world would be quiet. They would be philosophical gatherings, not for mourning a person who is gone, but for contemplating the nature of existence itself. People would memorialize the finite, unique life that was, celebrating it as a beautiful, fleeting pattern in the grand, impersonal tapestry of the cosmos. It's a strange, cold comfort. Something continues, but it's not you. It's the most alien of the three possibilities, and in some ways, the most terrifying. It's not a reward or a punishment, just a transformation into something completely unknowable. So you've got these three doors. Behind door A is eternal peace and potential boredom. Behind door B is eternal judgment and perpetual anxiety. And behind door C is eternal weirdness and the death of the self. And the day science tells us which door is the real one. The world changes forever. Think about the economy. The entire life insurance industry, a multi-trillion-dollar behemoth, would vanish overnight. Pension funds, which are built on predicting when you'll die, would be thrown into chaos. End-of-life healthcare, where we spend a fortune trying to squeeze a few more months of life out of a failing body, would be completely re-evaluated. This discovery wouldn't just be a headline. It would be an economic atom bomb. It would trigger a global depression that would make the 1930s look like a boom time, before new industries, like that karmic insurance or the transition industry, rose from the ashes. There would be companies selling you tech to ensure a smooth passage or to try and communicate with people on the other side. Imagine getting a call from your dead grandma, but it's a subscription service. It's that bizarre. And the political fallout. My God, the information about the afterlife would become the most valuable and dangerous secret on the planet. Governments would classify it. They'd fight wars over it. The nation that controlled the technology to communicate with the other side would be the new global superpower. It would be a new kind of Cold War, an eternity race instead of a space race. When you really, truly sit down and think about it, the scientific proof of an afterlife doesn't solve humanity's biggest problem. It just swaps it out for a whole new set of them. We'd trade the fear of death for the staggering, crushing burden of managing eternity. The core struggle of being human would shift. It would no longer be about finding meaning in a finite life. It would be about navigating this cosmic vestibule, this waiting room, in the best way possible to prepare for the main event. And depending on what that main event is, life on Earth could become a paradise of liberated creativity, a prison of constant moral panic, or a meaningless, nihilistic sideshow. The discovery wouldn't be an answer. It would be the beginning of a million new, impossibly difficult questions. It's like that old saying, be careful what you wish for. Humanity has been wishing for an answer to the question of death for its entire history. But maybe, just maybe, the not knowing is what makes this life so precious. Maybe the uncertainty is what gives it stakes, what gives it meaning. This paper concludes that if this ever happened, we'd need to get our act together on a global scale, fast. We'd need an international body, like the UN but with real teeth, to manage the information and the technology, to stop any one country from weaponizing eternity. We'd need a crash course in a new kind of psychology to help people cope with the new reality, to prevent mass suicides or a global anxiety epidemic. We'd have to completely re-engineer our economies and our legal systems from the ground up. It would be the single greatest challenge our species has ever faced. We would be like children who have just been told that the universe is infinitely bigger and stranger than we ever imagined, and we've been handed a rule book we don't understand, for a game that never ends. So, here's the brain melter I want to leave you with. Let's take it one step further. Imagine that science proves the afterlife is real, and it's the karmic reckoning, the one with the moral scoreboard. And then, a few years later, a tech company, some rogue genius in a garage, develops a device, a handheld scanner. You can point it at anyone, and it reads their current, up to the minute karmic score. It shows you, on a scale of 1 to 1,000, exactly how good or bad that person is. What does that do to the world? Do we start using it for job interviews? For dating? Do we create a new caste system based on these scores? And what would you do if you pointed it at yourself? Think about that. See you next time.